So I'm going to start out with this. I'm going to start out with this whole Randy Orton saga with him hating the Indies. Look, first off, I heard that it was apparently a troll job and that Randy Orton really does respect indie wrestlers, but I'm still going to rip him. I'm still going to rip him for this because it was completely uncalled for what he said. It was completely uncalled for what he said. And now, look, I'm just going to preference it by saying this. I'm not one of these left-wingers that just gets sensitive about everything. I'm really not, okay? But I'm just going to say this. What he said was dumb. And I'm going to go into it right here. It started with a tweet by Rip Rogers. He says, every indie match now. Handshake, drawn out move exchange. This is awesome. Chant, strike it, chain. Dive, no sell, indie strong style. Dive, more strikes, no sells. Dive, flippy floppy sequence. Dive, hit everyone with each other's finishers. Then Humpty Dumpty, we all fall down. Fight forever chant, rinse and repeat until every move is useless and means nothing. Dive, take unshaved shot that looks like shit and hurts like hell, then roll up, finish, handshake, and hug after match. Everyone's hands raised. All these guys chants, go home and type on social media thanking your opponent and the company for the match and telling others they should book these guys. ... Dive. Bubba Ray Dudley then replied to this with a picture saying dive with him jumping onto, I believe that's the Bullet Club with Adam Page, Tamatanga, and I believe that's Tongarella. I'm not sure. I'm just looking at this on my Twitter. I didn't zoom into the image, so I don't know those three, but I know one of them is Adam Page and the other is Tamatanga. He then tweeted to Bubba Ray Dudley saying, LOL, there's a difference between a young, hungry talent diving and an old, out of shape, quote, vet falling. And then he goes on to state an apology. Also, before that, somebody tweeted to him. He said, Randy Orton tweeted out a gif of some overweight guy flopping in a pool. And then a woman tweeted at him saying he flopped just like your title reign. He said, be more precise, there's 13 of them. I actually liked that tweet, to be honest with you. I thought it was really funny. But then he just took it to a whole new level. He tweeted out a picture in his notes saying, sorry to the indie marks, indie guys, and old timers who do dives. Took offense. Just having a good time over a few drinks in Denmark, closing the SmackDown Live tour while beating Raw in making over $5 million in the last 11 days. Now, I know to some that doesn't equate to a standing room only crowd of 150 people paying $8 at an armory somewhere, but in the big boy world, that's called putting asses in seats. So enjoy your flips, dives, and 20 super kicks per match, to each their own. I will go dive back into my 13th title reign and get ready to flip when my bank statement comes this month. ... Headlock. Now, look, I have a big problem with what he said just due to the fact that I don't think he was trolling people, and I think this is actually how he feels. I feel like this is how every WWE wrestler who didn't wrestle 10 years in the independents feel. Because you have Rusev out there looking like a complete idiot, skipping SmackDown Live because of a hockey game. I'll get into that later. And then he tweets a couple weeks back saying congrats to Alexa Bliss. She wasn't working the indies for 10 years. Look, I'll tell you this. I'd rather have somebody who worked the indies for 10 years coming into WWE than having a performance center guy who just started wrestling 2 years ago. So enough with this whole ripping the independent scene. And look, this is coming from somebody who isn't a huge independent mark. Now, I watch independent shows and I keep up with the independents. I'm more of a casual independent fan. But I respect what they do due to the fact that I respect professional wrestlers. I respect anybody in a combat sport or in this type of scenario. I respect the hell out of them. Okay, so when I hear these WWE guys coming out and saying, oh yeah, indie wrestlers, oh, I'm not an indie wrestler, I came from the Performance Center, you don't have to be an indie wrestler to make it to the WWE. Yeah, well, you're right, but I'd rather have an indie wrestler in the WWE than some guy who just came from the NFL and this is just his backup career. Come on now. And about Randy Orton, I gotta say, he made himself look like the biggest douche. He made himself look like the biggest douche ever. When he said, I'm going to flop back into my 13th title reign, I'm going to flip back into my 13th title reign and flip when my bank statement comes this month, I thought he took it way too far because basically what he's saying is, oh, I make a lot of money and you guys don't, so don't at me, I'm better than you. It came off very, very entitled. He came off like a very entitled, person. So I didn't understand why Randy Orton had to go on such a rant about the independent scene when probably 78% of the people who he works with were on the indies for 10 years. And I agree with Cage Side Seats when they say this needs to be his new gimmick because I think it makes for a perfect angle. Him being an indie hater, I think it makes for a perfect angle, especially if he's going to be in a feud with AJ Styles next. It makes for a perfect angle. WWE needs to take advantage of this and turn him heel. They need to turn him heel because he just pulled the most heel action you could think of, and that is insulting indie wrestlers. Us smarks love indie wrestling. And when we hear somebody like Randy Orton coming out and ripping the independent scene, we take offense to it. So I didn't like what he said, and that's really all I'm going to say about that.